Hey, welcome to the channel, guys. In today's video, we're going to discuss what is the sweet spot for a real estate investor. So again, this is a real estate investor that is an individual, not an institutional or a small-time investor. As you progress into your real estate career, real estate investment portfolio, you want to start targeting a sweet spot, right? You want to get to the point where you're targeting a specific type of multifamily properties so that you can grow your portfolio and have a better set of assets. So with that being said, let's get started. All right, so what are the different types of multifamily properties, right? So in this case, we're looking at, when I say multifamily, I'm talking about both residential and commercial. And for those of you that don't know the difference, residential is anything from 2 units or 1 unit to 4 units. So a single family home, a duplex, triplex, fourplex, all of that is technically considered residential. And any property that has more than 5 units or more is considered commercial property. So in this case, we're talking about all of them, all multifamily properties. So what are the different criteria or different types of multifamily? Well, the first thing is the class type, right? Is it A class, B class, C class? And that basically defines, what type of property it is, right? When was it built? If it's a class A, that's the prime type of multifamily property. It's in a great location in the city, some of the best parts of town. It was built within the last 10 years, so it's got no repairs that it needs. And it's a luxury apartments. All those are class A, right? That's the cream of the crop. And those tend to be pretty expensive because they generate a lot of income, but also they tend to be very expensive. And then you have B class, which is I believe anything built within 10 to 20 years. It's a little bit, it's not as luxurious as the A class A, but it's pretty good type of class of properties, right? And then you have the C and D. C and D are pretty much, low income in the rough part of town, or, they were built over 30 years ago. They require repairs. You may have low income tenants. So all of those qualify as C, and then D is pretty much all of the above. It's older, needs a lot of repairs. It's got a low vacancy, and then that's the other component as well. I don't have it listed here, but it's vacancy, right? What's the vacancy of the property? So when you're looking at a deal on multifamily, you want to look at what kind of class type is it? Is it a class A, B, C, D? And then the next thing is units, right? How many units we're talking about? Is it a 2 unit, 3 units, or 100, 200 units? And that's another criteria that you have to look at. And then the other part is how many buildings is it, right? You have some apartments that are just one building housing all units. And then you have other multifamily deals that are, multiple buildings, right? They combined a bunch of fourplexes or duplexes on the same street and just, call them a one apartment, and then you have those type of deals as well. So how many buildings? That's going to factor into your cost. You would rather have one building to deal with as opposed to multiple buildings, because then you'll have to deal with multiple roofs that you need to worry about, multiple structures, and so on and so forth. Okay, so what's your sweet spot, right? Let's say you're an investor, you're not an institutional investor, and what should you focus on, right? So you can, there's a whole gamut of different types of multifamilies, and which ones are to your advantage, which ones should you focus on? And my recommendation is to focus on multifamily properties that are either class C, preferably class C or better if possible. If you are willing to take on the challenges of a class D property, requires a lot of repairs and you've done this before and you have experience with that, you can take on a class D, but preferably a class C property. in a Class B location. So what does that mean, a Class B location? Well, the location is in a good part of town, or it's an up and coming part of town, but the property just is an older property, needs a lot of repairs, needs some TLC, right? Those are the best ones. Those are the ideal deals that you want to target. The ones that are C class in a B location. That's the goal, right? That's the objective, because then you have the opportunity to turn that Class C property potentially by fixing it up, upgrading it into a Class B potentially, right? And you can, you have room to grow with the rent as well, because more likely, since you're in a B location, you're not charging as much rent as your competitors across the street. Now, granted, they may be newer buildings, so you have to kind of compete with that as well. But the idea, the sweet spot would be a Class C in a B location. But if not a B location, then a Class C and a Class C location is the second best thing. Now, in terms of units, I say target 20 to 100. Now, if you're starting off, you're probably not going to go with 100 units. That's not going to happen. You have to work your way to get to the 20 to 100 units. But the reason why the 20 to 100 unit is the sweet spot is because once you go, the smaller units, like 4 units and lower, pretty much anybody with a residential mortgage can purchase them, right? So your competition is everybody, right? Any starting investor that wants to house hack is going to target the duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes, right? So your competition for that is everybody. Any investor that's getting started to seasoned investors that are, that pick up a lot of multifamily, everybody's going to get those, right? And from 4 to 20, really, you don't experience that much what they call economies of scale, especially if they're spread out in different parts of the city. So it's still challenging. But again, as when you're starting off, you probably will have to pick up a couple of duplexes, triplexes, and put these together to, get to 20 units or more. But preferably, you want to get one property that has at least 20 units, right? So now you can start to benefit from the economies of scale, and work your way up. Now, once you get to 100, the rule of thumb is once you have 100 units, one building or one location, now you could have a full-time property manager, one full-time property manager and one full-time maintenance per 100 units, right? So now it becomes a real, passive income, so to speak, because you have full-time employees that are managing and maintaining your property. So 100 unit is the ideal, right? Now, you don't want to go a little more than 100 units, because if you do go to 150, 200, 300, now you're getting into the big boy territory. That's where the institutional money comes in, right? All of the Blackstones and, the big REITs and all these different major players, that's what they target. They buy those 150, 200, 300 unit properties. And you don't want to compete with those guys. They have deep pockets, and they're just gonna beat you to any deal. So that's the reason why I cap it at 100 if you're a small time investor. But over time, you can work your way to purchasing, 100 plus units. That's the objective for everyone. But to start off with, and as you progress and as you build your portfolio, you want to target to about 100 units. That's the ideal. That's the perfect spot, is 100 units, one location. That way it becomes much more passive, since you have a team, and that's going to be very important who you hire. Property managers are extremely critical. The operation of your property is going to determine how well your cash flow is, and how much your property value goes up. So with that being said, and finally, the building, right? The building count is you want to have as little, as many units concentrated in one or two buildings as possible. If they're spread out across multiple buildings, that's more expenses that you have to deal with. You know, multiple roofs, multiple, windows and so on that you have to deal with. So preferably you want them to be all in one structure as opposed to having multiple structures to deal with. So with that being said, that's basically a rough idea of the sweet spot you want to target. I'll do more videos about, going through a deep dive and showing you an example of a deal. Comment below if you guys are interested in that. All right, guys, thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe and comment. Until next time, take care, guys.